Huh. Live chat is currently not available. Okay, well, let's see what we can do to fix that. I think I'm live. Let me check and verify if that's true. Hold on real quick. Channel looks like it wants to be live. Video unavailable. Available. Okay, there's that. That's okay. So we're up and running there. I had a weird glitch that said video unavailable. Now it says my chat's unavailable. So I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to pop out chat. I need to fix my volume too. So I'm gonna pop out chat as a separate window today, since it's not working. Sometimes OBS just doesn't work right. So we're gonna be here, and I'm gonna drop my volume down here to get that out of the way. This is what we call technical difficulties. Copy there. Click. And then, let's see. How do I do this? Sorry, guys. It's just acting a little bit wonky this morning. So, we'll be up and running here in a hot second. So in the meantime, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. What's up? I create role-playing games. I illustrate them. I publish them online. And I'm creating an adventure for the Eberron campaign setting called Crystals of Mabar. You can see the book cover here on screen. It's for 7th and 8th level characters. You're running around the karrnwood fighting undead, necromancers, undead, and demons. And let's see. Check that box. Check that box. Check that box. Back into here. Is there like a way I can refresh? Oh my god, there's a refresh button. That's fantastic. Cool. So I don't have to worry about this pop out. So I can get rid of that. And looks like everything is squared away. Let me fix my screen here real quick, and then we'll get started. There we go. I'll just to conclude. Thank you, new subscribers. That's awesome. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications when we're live in the future. I recently exceeded 500 subscribers, so if you want to jump to my Patreon, if you follow me on Patreon, you can access this file as a following member. It's all the brushes that I use. It's called an ABR file, Adobe brushes. All the brushes that I use for the illustrations that I do, my paintings, they're all loaded here into this Phil YouTube 500 subs appreciation brushes. I got the hard round, the soft round. I have my cloud smudge brush. I have my guitar pick smudge brush. I have my mountain chalk, the mountain razor, the conifer foliage, the conifer tips. My foliage texture brush, my fractal cauliflower brush, the fractal brush, and just the fractal line brush, my faded foliage brush, the mountain range block that I use, corn husks, leaf vines, a foliage scatter brush, the tree line horizon, which you rotate 90 degrees to use, and my kelp brush, the grass blades brush, and the distant hedge brush. That's basically all the brushes I use to do Bob Ross paintings. It's just a limited set of brushes, and that's what we're using right now to create this Bob Ross painting for the karrnwood. When we left off, I was steeped in regrets because I don't like how this turned out. I was adding this rock, this mossy rock mass here while streaming, talking about whatever we're talking about, but I'm not liking how it's sitting. So I think I need to reassess. We're going to take. I was originally pulling from this mass here, this mossy rock formation here, and I think we have a space for this. But I think me dropping it in here is getting ahead of myself. That's probably something that I'm going to want to use further down in the horizon line of this piece. This is actually using somewhat of a Japanese style of perspective while also using actual perspective. Japanese prints, when they would do their artwork, they would have things physically located, like vertically located above each other on a document on the scroll. A scroll just keeps unscrolling. So when you're looking at the top, that's further away, and at the bottom is closer to you. But they didn't make things smaller. They just repositioned them so they were further away. So top just means further away. In the same sense, this has that same sort of approach, except we're actually using actual perspective techniques of like reducing size and stuff. Normally, the something distant would be perhaps dead on or closer to the horizon line, but in this instance, we have so much vertical space, so much verticality in this space that that I'm implementing some of that tilted topography. So yeah, that's where we're gonna start. So let me just finish off and say, thank you for being here. Here's a bunch of other books that I've made on the DMs Guild. They're all free previews. You can read them cover to cover. If you're a D&D enthusiast, check them out. Make a purchase if you want to support me. Patreon, of course, you can just be a follower to get access to these brush tools. And here's all 494 episodes in my playlist. We made the book cover around, I want to say, episode 40. So, all right, so that's it. Continuing with the struggle, as it were, to get this thing done. We're going to need more trees to have a forest. We've got a decent ridge line here, but we need to continue layering in more effects. So let's take a look here. I think I'm going to reorient myself and push into this this space here, and I like the contrast of this shrubbery we have here. Shrubberies. So I'm going to grab this here, and I'm just going to add some mass to the page. Let's see, we're currently just using a hard round brush. I'm going to switch that. I think I want to switch to a foliage texture brush. I'm going to up our size a little bit. I'm just going to block this in. It's very dark. It's too dark. It's too dark and too sharp for where we are on the elevation of the page. So I want to instead use something a little more faint. Show me. Maybe something like that. I'm using the RGB slider up in here in the corner for me to read the levels of dark value. Let me add my tools back in. Should I bring my fucking tools? That is probably going to be okay. Yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, cool. We can move with that. So we're going to add in. Yeah, this feels good. Just going to get some layers going. The answer is always more layers. You don't like how something's coming on, add in another layer. So I'm going to drop in. I want to have some. I want to break up this side over here a little bit, so because it's starting to lag. There we go. So I can leave a little gap there, but I'm going to need to drop in more trees. So right now we're just setting up the next, our next, basically blinding. So we want to cover the feet of the trees with shrubbery and hedges and shit like that, bushes, blah. So I'm just going to blend the foot of this into the terrain. Again, we're just adding in some more blocks, and then we'll populate it with buds and fronds and branches and stuff. this will end up working out better. Here, we're going to drop it down a little bit just to push it off the page. And then we can take this block here, push it up the page to break the horizon. Here, there we go. And just have this flow into the landscape here just by smudging it in. I think I want to be more like here. Yeah, that feels pretty good. And then we fade this in here. Let's break that up a little bit here like that. And we'll go up the hill a little bit. Just kind of let these things drop into place. There we go. Thanks a lot for folks that are showing up and checking out what we got going on here. Right now we're putting in the base backdrop color, like the shadow color of the next bush hedges that we're adding to the composition here. So I just want to work this into the canvas so it just fades into the rest of the environment before we start adding the branches and the fronds and the buds and stuff. Let's erase some of that. We can add and remove things. That's the advantage that we have in digital over normal canvas, is that we can erase when we make mistakes. So the less we have to correct our mistakes, obviously the better off we're going to be, but we don't have to worry about regrets. So I love the technology. I love Photoshop. It's always been such a great tool for me all throughout my freelance art career. I've tried others, Krita and Clip Art Studio, and they don't resonate with me. They just feel different, and I haven't gotten around. I haven't gotten over that. So I've been resistant / hesitant to gear up any other type of program. Let's fade that in a little bit more. It's a little bit too aggressive here. That's creating a good foundation. That's a good foundation. So let's get the composition out of the way for the moment. Focus in over here and blend this in a little bit better. Thank you, Tommy Timer. Nice. So I stream 9 times per week, Monday through Friday in the morning like this. We do artwork for whatever the next book is that we're going to be publishing, which will be this adventure. And then in the evenings, like on Monday and Thursday nights now, as well as Tuesday and Friday lunchtimes, including today, we do game design. And I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, utilizing the new 2024 rules to expand options in the game for both players and DMs. So I'm excited about where we're at right now, and we're currently rebuilding the monk subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons to utilize the color mana system that we've published, which is on the DMsGuild. You can find a link to that down below and check it out for no cost. Basically converting all of the character classes into the same mana model or spell point system that utilizes the color magic philosophy from Magic the Gathering. So since Wizards owns both MTG and D&D, they've made a few crossover campaign settings, Ravnica, Theros, and Strixhaven, but they didn't include any information about color identity or the color mana system. They just boiled the MTG game into the 5e game engine of spell slots and 8 schools of magic, which is, it's just a different way of translating magic. But it was disappointing that we didn't have the one company that's capable legally of, with allowance, allowing the merger of the merging of MTG to D&D and not have anything to say about color mana. So that's one of the biggest accomplishments that I have, is in producing a solution for how to implement color mana into your 5e game engine. So we'll be continuing to work on that with the monks today at lunch, and then we'll probably do that. That'll take up the full hour. We may have a little bit of time to start in on the paladin, but I love how the paladin is built using the mana system. I'm absolutely thrilled with what type of solutions we're able to create for that character type. So I'm looking forward to finishing monk and getting back into paladin. I think it's mostly done. I think we're just doing some cleanup work on the designs that we have for the different paladin oaths, but we'll need to get back into it to see it. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that today. That's looking good here. Yeah, so that's a good base. There's an interesting parallel in this technique to making clouds. Clouds also fades the bottom, depending on where the lighting's coming from. The lighting for clouds generally, you fade out the bottom and you have a more crisp, pronounced top. Mountains as well, more pronounced, crisp top that then fades into a misty base. Here we're utilizing those same techniques again to make bushes similarly in design, in structure, like of how you build them, similar to the clouds. So that feels just about. I'm really working that into the canvas here. We're going to add a separate layer on top of this and start adding in the skeleton of the roots and branches and stuff in these bushes. There. All we really have to do is just keep adding layers. So once we get these done, we'll be able to add in more trees. Again, here's our composition. So there's going to obviously be more trees as we move further forward. So the terrain is dropping down the page at an angle, and all the trees are still set there. Luckily, there's the karrnwood can be a hilly place. So actually having like literal hills like this is acceptable topography for the actual terrain in this part of Karrnath, where this is happening. So we're gonna switch our colors, add a layer, jump in here, and just gonna add a light dusting. You can see here, we're just adding blocks of texture and filling in towards the top, and then dropping down. Just basically seeing like puzzle pieces, seeing how these things can fit together. The brush is designed to have a, here I'll show you. This particular, and again, this is in the brush set that's linked down below, so you're welcome to grab them. That locked up there for a second, that was frightening. Brush settings. Okay, so you can see here we have this, this scattering here. We have scatter tool is on a fade setting, so I'm just tapping. I'm just tapping it, like stippling. So it's like one tap, and every time I tap, it changes the orientation. So this has an 84% scatter, which means that the brush could appear at different at different angles. If you look at the shape dynamic here, we have a stutter on its angle, so it has a 25%, up to a 25% shift every time I touch it, but it could be anywhere from 0% to 25% rotating, and it could rotate either way. Roundness jitter is off. The size jitter up to 33%, so it'll increase or decrease its size by 33%. And then again with the scattering, we have a scatter of 3, which means that it can shift up and down in its position, as well as rotate in place and change its size. So, yeah, so it has this randomizing factor to it, and you can just click buttons yourself if you're utilizing a similar tool. See how much smaller this is in comparison to the dots that we just put down. That creates a natural challenge to have the darker mass just filled in, because when you tap it, it just causes everything to resize. So the puzzle pieces are basically, the puzzle pieces that you're using are basically randomized for you to figure out when it gets reserved, like when it gets reset, what its dimensions are. That's like, how am I going to fit that into the space? That becomes a fun challenge. And I'm going to use the same brush, and I'm going to use a 20 some odd % eraser and just delete at the bottom of the mask that we have here to push it into the shadow, because only the top of it is going to be really highlighted well. So by tapping the eraser and fading it a little bit, it drops it into shadow more. So we're gonna dot that in here for a few moments, mindful of our lighting. Cool. Now I'm going to take an extra layer here, and we're going to switch to my round brush, and we're going to grab darker here. Like that. That's pretty good. Let's go up like this. And I like the way that one's shaped. Let's erase this one and just redo it real quick. So we're just making a basic skeleton of the branches that are holding the bush up, because most of it's going to get concealed by the foliage itself, but we want it present. There we go. Thicken up the base, and then we'll smudge it in. There we go. Yeah, like that. So now we just drop it behind the other layer, and it's already being concealed and looking a lot more like shrubbery wood. So now we can add a second layer using the same language as we did for the initial dusting of the here. Let's hit 30% eraser and just drop in some more here, just to fade out along. We really need it faded out at the base, so we're going to erase along the baseline. There you go. And now we're going to add a whole nother layer on top of it to create additional mass. That feels pretty good. And we'll take a mild eraser and tap at the bottom of this as well, just to fade it in a smidge. And then we'll do one last layer like that. A mild erase here. And then switching back to our round brush. It's going to ground it by adding another layer of soil here in the foreground. Just dust that along a little bit. And then we're going to smudge that into the terrain, up the opacity on that smudge brush, like around 60. Yeah. And just work this into the canvas. Just a base grit layer. And then we'll, after this, we'll go back. Once I work this into the canvas a little bit, just to ground it, like to literally ground it in place, so it feels more appropriate here. Like it's not just sitting on the page, but it gets embedded into the terrain. And once we have that embedded, we'll go back through. We're going to put tips, like little highlight tips, along this foliage that we just created. Really want to blend that into the canvas. We're stacking up information layers as we move down. Welcome to the stream. Hope you enjoy the show. And where's our branch? Where's our... There they are. I'm going to tap at the branches we have hidden inside the foliage there. I'm just tapping a light eraser on it to take off some of the sharpness of it. It's just barely poking through. You can see it. So if I tap it with a 30% eraser, it'll with the same dots that we're using for the foliage, the pattern matches the overall composition of the shrubbery, but it creates these little, you can see these little gaps here that get created by that, just by doing a light tapping to erase it down. So then it has a nice little fluffiness to it. It's a happy little bush. Grab all of that. Yeah, no, I'm just going to throw that away. Good. Yeah, that looks good. Cool. Okay, great. Carrying on. Here's our new landmass. Blend that in. Almost there. Stay on target. It's not as fast as Bob Ross's paintings, but it ends up looking very similar. So I'm pretty happy with the results overall. And if I actually knew what I was doing, like if I knew what the composition was ahead of time, it'd move a lot quicker too. But we're just figuring things out on the fly over here. That's part of the creation process. I like sharing the whole reason we do the stream is to share what goes into creating the paintings, how to do it, doing it actually in real time instead of doing speed up videos, because time lapse videos and art it creates a false sense of how long does it actually take to do things, and I don't like that. I think that's discouraging for new artists that are still learning techniques and looking for advice. I think the advice that they need is you need to have a ridiculous amount of patience to do any of this stuff. Because it takes time. Like, look at the time I'm spending here just working this into the canvas. This stuff just takes time. That feels really, really good. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that in place. All right, so let's add some more. Yeah, let's add some highlights. So we'll go back to the reference image that we're using. Has a really neat, had some really nice tufts in here. Like, I like this as a base color. That's really sharp. It's really sharp. It's too sharp. Let's grab. That's probably gonna end up being a decent highlight. It's not enough. We need a little bit more pop. Whoa, where'd you go, buddy? Come on back here. That is probably going to be a good strong highlight. Yeah, it's a very strong highlight. So we'll dot this in. Yeah, we're going to dot this in, and we'll probably have to fade it a little bit. So we're going to use, let's see, what's the brush that we're going to use? We've been using the spin topography. Let's use the conifer tips. It's generally a different texture. So let's see if this works. We'll just dot this on and see if we like how it looks. So we're just basically crowning these bushes with this textured highlight, and then we're going to use the same texture brush that we used to create the base foliage. We're using this different brush to add in the highlights, but we're going to erase it using the same brush that we've been using. So like this. And I don't know if this is the right way to do this or not. No, I don't like it. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to do something different. Hey, what's up? Hey, Steve. It's good to see you. Let's grab a different brush. This one isn't jiving for what I want it to do. Let's grab a classic. Let's grab our foliage scatterburst. This should work out nicely. Put a bit of tap. Same sort of puzzle boxing the foliage together like this. So we're overlaying it on top of the other, like the stipple. We have three layers. We have the base background color, which is our shadow. We have the second layer, which is a stippling effect, which is just basically like small leaves on the bush. And then we have the top layer here is the highlights that we're currently dusting onto the piece, and this adds form as sort of like globes, like adds mass and curvature to the shrubbery that we're making. Now, I don't need to overdo it, but it does help show, like, again, how the like clouds, it has has all this like cotton candy sort of amorphous puffiness to it. We're adding that same sort of idea to these bushes, but instead of it being it's stippled. So the sphere, as opposed to mist in a cloud, which is a solid block of color as mist, this has a pockmarked stipple effect representing the different leaves that are hanging on to the branch. See, now you can see how the branches are poking through and adding language to the bushes overall. I can put the little thing over here as a separate little bit, and then we'll erase and dust at the base of this to highlight, to reduce how much of it is being highlighted, so it curves, like the curve of the shape of the bush feeds into how we tap at the highlights that are on it. So we're just getting rid of some of the lower part of it Sup? Do you paint miniatures? No, I can't. I don't see color, so I don't use color in the real world. Only in digital tools can I pretend I have color vision, and I use my RGB slider in the upper right hand corner to do it for me. So I have no idea when I'm using paints if it even looks good or not. Like it's all gray tone to me, so it could look stupid to you, and I wouldn't know. So it's too much of an investment for too much risk in me making things that just look wrong. So if I just went like Necrons, I think probably have a very limited color palette, so I could potentially paint Necrons, but I like orcs. Orcs have color. I'm not gonna mess with it. Let's grab this here. I want to add another layer of low ground shrub like this. So I got way too much going on. I don't even have time for video games, you know? It's like I'm either the one video game I play is chess at chess.com, and those are like anywhere from 1 to 10 minute bursts. So like I spend virtually like almost all of my creative / hobby downtime activity. It's all building books, painting books, play testing ideas in the books. My hobby has hobbies, you know. Let's erase that a little bit. Adding a bit of a shadow underneath these. There, we get the next crest. And this is a separate layer unto itself, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to push it up a little bit and slide it over some. That feels pretty good. All right, now we're going to do the same treatment over here. Second verse, same as the first. Bush, bush, bush. Gamers for life, my guy. Looking good, thank you. I can see the forest of the trees. So we're adding these hedge lines to break up the horizon so that we can keep like I was saying, Japanese style, continue dropping elevation on the page to show different layers of distance. And so like we need to have more. It's a like you said, it's a forest, so I'm going to have to add in more trees next, and I can have more and more trunk showing as we get closer and closer to the camera. At some point we're going to be where like we're close enough to like the composition here. We're going to be close enough to a tree that we're not really looking at the foliage of it at all. So it's going to break frame here and conveniently fill this gap in the sky. But then we'll work on the texturing of the actual trunk itself. We're going to add moss and like this black crystal infestation on it. So it's going to start showing that the forest is being affected by the plague winds blowing out of the manifest zone, carrying the unnatural flora with it, and start messing up the karrnwood around it. But so we'll add in shrubbery here. We'll put in a couple trees that are like behind this shrubbery here. So we're the space back here, like this shrub back here, and this shrub here creates this space on the ground. You can see like these little tufts of terrain and grass and stuff. That division in space there, we can put tree trunks in there, so that it fills that space with the forest. So we're adding more and more trees in as we go. So we create our backdrop, we put in a foreground, and then between the foreground and the backdrop, that's where we drop the trees, and the roots of the trees are lost in the foreground foliage. So we'll be doing a series of bush, trees behind the bush, and then in front of the bush, more tarmac and grass and rocks and twigs and stuff along the ground, until we hit the next ridge line, which will be here and here. See, it's creating like this little slalom here for the eye to dance around. And if it was raining, you would expect this to flood, like with its own little rivulet that would eventually feed into lower land. So we're adding that. So we're adding this mass up. It just takes time to do it. Just takes. I forgot to add a layer. One second. Okay, something weird's happening. Hold on. There's that. There we go. That's how we need to do. Okay, cool. I got my layers figured out. So back into it. We need a bigger shrubbery. Yeah, it would look like the Pacific Northwest. Karrnath is very much like the Pacific Northwest in that it has these just massive pine tree growths in a very northern, like the northern edge of Karrnath is the beginning of. It's like Canada, like far Canada, like the northern edge of it, and so it's going to have a similar sort of feel to it. So yeah, well said, sir. Well said. So again, all we have to do is it's just stipple. So the brushes that we have, again, the brush sets are available on my Patreon. All you have to do is follow me on Patreon. You don't even have to pay to be there. And I just posted the tool set yesterday, but all these brushes that I'm using are there. And obviously you can watch me working here right now to see how I'm using these tools to make to make these paintings. I reached out to the Bob Ross company and asked them, I've figured out how to do these techniques in Photoshop. Are you interested in having a conversation like me doing sponsored content or something? They're like, who are you? I'm like, I'm nobody. Like, okay, well, get the fuck out of here. Like, I didn't know at the time, but and I didn't realize, it was naive of me. The Bob Ross company's main interest is selling paint. So if I'm offering a means of creating their paintings, of duplicating these paintings without having to buy paint, they're like, why would we support that? I'm like, oh, all right. Never mind, I guess. I mean, it makes sense. They're just protecting themselves. But I'm like, it's such a... In a world where they didn't have to worry about making money, maybe they'd be more interested in the altruistic efforts that I've been taking to do this sort of stuff. But I can't use their fucking paints. I don't see color. So like me working in real life canvas just doesn't make any sense for who I am. So, but I was compelled to create this stuff anyway. So I had to find a way, as they say in Jurassic Park. So I'm gonna hit the edge of this. I'm gonna fade it down. To break up the mass of it. And then we'll add our the skeleton, the trunk and branches of the shrubbery, and then we'll do the highlighting over it as we did for that same effect. So let's see. I'm going to add in another layer. So we erase the base to create the shadow effect, but then we have another layer which is just showing that like it's not just two-dimensional. We have this additional mass of shrubbery in front, a little bit lower, so you can see these gaps that we created in the shadow. That creates a separate, another line of depth in the composition, and this is just added depth within the same shrubbery bushes. I'm saying shrubbery a lot. So I want to dust, and it's got this randomizer on it, so I have to be very light in my touch, so that I don't. If I just hold it down a little bit, it ends up making just a smudgy mess, and it doesn't have the crispness of the stipples being properly separated from each other. Word salading a little bit there. Don't mind me, guys. Yep, and now we'll erase at the base of this as well, just to fade it in so it doesn't look like it's sitting on it, that it's like it's part of it instead of on top of it. And we have room for a third layer. Let's zoom in a little bit. And yeah, we're spilling into the text, so a lot of this is going to end up being like these fringes are going to get concealed by the text layer, or we're going to block it out so that the text stands clear. But we want to extend, like for like we have it clipped here, right? But it's clipping directly into the text, so the text, like the actual border of the page is going to be like around here. Ish. Probably more like this. So like everything to the right of that's going to end up being faded out into the margin of the page that separate the different columns of the page that we're working on. So I don't mind painting outside of the lines right now, because I know a lot of it's going to end up getting concealed, but it adds like with the mountains. When we paint over the mountains, we know the mountains are back there. So if we shift something in the composition, since everything's in separate layers, we can shift things around as we need to make the elements work with each other. And the same thing with the masking layer. When we cover this up, when we mask over it so that the text is clear, we'll see how the thing is actually like framed, like literally framed inside the page. And I want to add a little more volume down here. Nice. So we have like this nice little spilling effect. That feels really, really good. So we have these 3 layers, and you can see that they're all pretty well separated from each other. In the foreground. So those 3 layers there, it's all, and then we'll add the highlights in on top of that. But right now we need to add twigs. More twig, more twig, more twig. So we'll switch back to our roundy brush, drop down. Let's put it on top first. So looking at how the masses sit, we're going to do the back line first. Yeah, I'm just looking for the tufts. So hold on, let me hit ourselves to 100% eraser tool, and boop, boop, there we go. Let's redo this one. There, and then here, and then we have a twig like that and like that. We can broaden out the base here and here. And then we want to have another one here. And this one can broaden out like that. Just a basic, just a really rudimentary roots. Pardon the rudimentary roots. You're a put, Kearney. I want to thicken the base. Thicken the base. Thicken the base. Let me smudge the base downward into the ground. Still spilling out over here, so more like this, and then another one here, working into the base. All these, like, yeah, we can't, like, if I were to ever use AI, like, as a, like, quote unquote actual co-pilot, what I would be like is like, hey, you see how, and I would have to be able to actually have a conversation with it. I'd be like, Siri, do you see how I'm utilizing, like, how I'm making this shrubbery? And she'd be like, yes. I'm like, okay, well, I want you to replicate that. Like, make like another, like, do that over here, do that here, and do that here, and have increasing amounts of contrast as we get closer to the page. Like that to me, because I'm engineering the language of the piece, and I would want it to see how it's poking through. It's poking through the foliage, right? So I want to hit it with the same sort of brush that we were using with the erasing tool at like a 20%, so I can tap at it to break up the consistency of it a little bit. But bushes are just really small trees, you know. Zaphod, he's just this guy, you know. So we have that for the first, so we have 3 layers, right? 1, 2, and 3. So this is for the 3rd layer for this back, and I'm erasing at most of the base while leaving the top of it relatively untouched so that you can see the scaffolding of how the branch works, using the layers that are further up on the page to conceal them, but using the block of dark, like the darker block behind it as like a shadowy backdrop. So that's how that layering works. So now we'll go to... here's our next set of layer here. So we're going to add our next layer of bush in here. And again, same process. We're just looking for, we're going to overlay it, looking to see where, erase that. It looks like trip. Let's try that again. Thank you, Timely Timer. We need bigger shrubbery. Let's crack that up to 100%. Yeah, I'm not liking that one. Let's move on. It's fighting me, so I'm in the wrong place. Let's go over here. This immediately feels better. Here, like that. What's up? Hey, Gabby. I am doing fantastic. Thanks for tending to your flock. Hey, Gabby. I am doing fantastic. Thanks for tending to your flock. Thanks to the new followers on my Patreon channel. I appreciate it. We're going to be doing more and more stuff in the future utilizing Patreon. I'm trying to figure out how to make all these different things that I'm attempting to accomplish, how to fold them all in together a little bit more naturally. So I'm kind of I hyper focus on a specific task and just kind of tackle it until it's done. Regardless of how long it takes, which isn't necessarily healthy, quote unquote. I could certainly afford. I already diversify like my design time, like so that I have different stuff that I'm doing throughout the week, so I don't specifically burn out on any single task at a time. I'm gonna fade this in here like that, and then we'll drop it behind the actual hedges there. Yeah, it's not so bad. There's some random twiggy stuff inside here. Just to add some volume. What's up? Oh, did you pick up some of the novels? I never got into Eberron novels. It's my understanding that some of them are quote unquote good, but I've never actually read any of them myself. Oh, exploring Eberron? Right on. Campaign lore dump. Cheers. Eberron's a really cool campaign. Let's merge down. Yeah. And I can just erase at the bottom bits here to have those, again, have those fade into the environment a little bit more. Not bad. Let's grab this color here and then switch back to our foliage brush. Looks a little thin up front here. I wanted to add a little more mass in over here. I spy with my eye something that is text. So. Yeah. Nah, nothing wrong with that, man. Lore dump. Gotta love the lore. Fit that in just a smidge here. Okay, cool. Now we can do our highlights. So let's add a highlighting layer in. And we're going to grab the same highlights as we did from over here. Nice brighter base. We're going to switch to our foliage spin brush, and we'll add in the same highlights. Dust at it, so we erase down the bits at the bottom so it fades in, curved into the canvas, into the shape of the brush, eating away at the highlights. The highlights are coming, the light source is coming from the right hand side and up part of the page, which is east, rising in the east. Erase like that, and then we'll need another layer to separate these highlights from behind so that if we have to erase, we won't damage these highlights here. Like that. And then we're just puzzle piecing them together, like just curving the brush so that it folds together. And then we erase at the base to get rid of because it's curved, so it's a dome, and so only one part of the dome is going to be most highlighted, and everything else radiating from that circularly from it is going to have less light impacting it and scattering differently because it's a curved surface. So we're doing these. I'm doing these curved, like this is the shape of the erase that I'm using as I'm going along the base. Like that. Let me pan back. We'll add another layer in on top of it. Erase on through like that. And here. Erase into that a little bit. Like that. I'm gonna merge those down. And then we'll add another layer in on top of it. Again, just like puzzle pieces, just filling in the gaps to add volume to the overall space that the shrub is occupying. That, there. There you go. And I want to drop, merge those together, and drop it a little bit. There you go, that feels pretty good. And now we'll take the same dark here, and going back to the round brush, take this and just ground it. I'm just grounding it into the base. Somewhere around like this. Like what, around 50% strength on our smudge brush here. I'm just using the cloud brush. It's a very gentle smudging tool. It doesn't eat a lot of RAM to use it, and it's very it's here. I'll show you what the actual brush looks like. This is the footprint of the smudge tool that I'm using. See how it has, here, let's make a, there. Nope, that's too smudgy. There. See how it has all those line breaks in it? Oops, there's different layers. These are stacked up. Like, see, this is faded a little bit here, faded a little, and then it has like this little jag in here, these little angles that cut into it. These get treated as their own separate topography because they have differing layers of opacity. So as I with using this tool, as I grab and I pull on it, see it's grabbing all of that information, and I can smudge it and pull it around. Like if I drop down to a really low strength, like a 20% strength, see, it just softens it. It just blends in. It's a very good blending tool for circular and lateral movement. It's very delicate and allows you to really just fogify whatever it is that you're doing. So it's great. It's great for like doing like little circles and little X's and tufts and stuff, because it's all those lines of separation, all these blocks, this block here and this block here and here. These are all pulling pixels with different strength. So the actual overall strength of the brush like might be 50%, but inside that 50%, like maybe only 20% of the pixels are being pulled over here, or like 40% are being pulled over here. So you have this variable amount of grip that the smudge brush has on the pixels as it pulls it across the canvas. So it makes it really easy for us to like blend. Like Bob is always blending, like going down the page and like wiping and like doing little circles and X patterns and blending it into the canvas. This allows us to have that same sort of blending effect. This particular brush that we're using is designed to duplicate those smudging techniques. And I want to be around 50% when I'm pushing pixels like this into the terrain. So you can see I'm making like these little stripes pulling downward. That's helping blend, and this is at a layer lower than the highlights we have on the bush, so that the bush will we're basically blending ground underneath the shrubbery. So I'm angling downward to show the it's mild here, but it's going to get more radical drops as we move further down the page. So we have this gentle rolling hill sort of effect that we're establishing by moving laterally, like at these angles, and then to soften them, we move at an opposed angle and disperse the pixels like that, so that it softens the line. And again, we're always keeping like the top edge leading downward. We we smudge downward and keep like the crest of this hill here. We keep that crest in place so that it establishes another layer, like another bump, another fold in the ground as we're moving across the canvas. And then we can use this topography that we're creating here to inform where we want to like layer in the next grass. We can layer grass in using the same terrain topography that we're establishing here. And this lets us bleed from one element to the next. Like this shrubbery here is a separate element from this shrubbery over here, which is separate from this knoll back here. So we're creating this rolling sort of environment effect by adding these different angles into it and smudging them into the canvas. So the repetition of us duplicating this ongoing cascading bouncing terrain further down the page is basically just rote practice. We're just duplicating, adding and just continuing to add in more and more color information as we go. And again, like we were talking about yesterday, at some point your eye just kind of gives up and it just starts shorthanding everything that it looks at. So you don't have to worry about like too many intimate details. You just need to make sure that you get the gist right so that your eye will pick up on the gist of it and go with it. Fold that together there, and here. Again, blending this stuff in here, creating these shapes. I like this a lot better than the rock that we were trying to make at the end of yesterday's session. That thing just did not want to sit. It's gonna end up somewhere down here, where a lot of contrast is gonna make sense, and we're gonna want to break up. When you get closer to the camera and you're looking at more detail, your eye scrutinizes more. You want more diversity in your topography, so that the eye doesn't get bored in a bad way. If the eye accepts what you're looking at, it'll start shorthanding information for you because it just gets it. It's willing to go along with the illusion. It understands what you're trying to do, and to make life easy for itself, it just feeds into the illusion that you're creating. But if it doesn't like what it's looking at, it can't stop scrutinizing and finding flaws in something. So as your eye is required to pay attention to the grosser, larger details, you want to have more variety in what those details are, so it has less time to consider any particular piece, and instead look at the whole of the composition and accept the composition. Bruff. I want just another layer here. I like where this is at. This feels good. However, I want more. So I'm going to add another layer. Let's go down into, say, something like that. And we'll switch our brush. Let's get into our yeah, I think we can afford to go with our grass blades here. So, like I said, we're establishing these lines. I can use these grass blades to complement that contour here as we go down. And of course, it's a stippling effect. So, and we have the base background color that we've established along the ground. So now when I dust in these blade tips, I can smudge along the bottom of those and pull those downward here like that. Because up is always up, regardless of how angled or sloped the land is that we're working on. Okay, so I blew over my deadline last time. It's 7. Okay, so we've still got 20 some odd minutes left. We're doing okay. So we have that established. Now I can come in here and again I can just smudge that color into the terrain to help add more just color information into the piece. And I'm going to grab another color here, add another layer, and dust these in here like that. And then we'll erase at the bottom of them a little bit here just to fade them in. And we'll pull downward. Like that. Like that. Hey, what's up? Well, hi. NCEBOGOHUM. What am I drawing? I'm making a Bob Ross painting. So it's a forest piece, and here is the rest of the composition. Here, so we're like in Japanese illustrations, that the top of the page is further away and the bottom of the page is closer, even though they don't change the size of any of the elements inside the piece. They have a forced perspective in a lot of their traditional print, where like all characters are the same size at the top and the bottom, even though the top of the page is supposed to be further away from the camera's eye. So we're blending those two elements together using actual perspective of making things smaller in the distance than they are up close. But we're also using that because the page design here is here. I'll clear that out of the way. This is the page that we're building right now. It's for an adventure. It's a PDF, so it's a digital. So we built it in the 16:9 format. And you can see right now I'm having the painting bleed over the text, but we'll mask that out so the text stands alone. But we had this empty column here. So it's a 16:9. Each column is also 16:9. If you have it full screen and you're like using your phone, when you have it full screen on your phone right now, you can see that it fills the space of your phone, but each individual column is also 16:9. So the whole document is formatted for you to use either one column at a time on your phone or a whole page at a time on your phone. So I'm filling all the illustrations. I create, illustrate, and publish role-playing game supplements, and specifically Dungeons and Dragons, specifically Eberron, if you're familiar with it. And so this is just one of the paintings that we're doing for the adventure that we've written. So we designed, play tested, wrote, handed off the final writing to our editor, got it back, did the page layouts, and now that we have the pages laid out, like on this particular page, it's like I couldn't avoid it. I had an entire column that was empty, and it's in the section that's talking about different encounters and events inside the karrnwood as your characters move from one location to another during the adventure. So it was a perfect opportunity for me just to geek out and make a Bob Ross painting. I've done maybe around 120 Bob Ross paintings, like duplicated different episodes from his TV show using Photoshop here in this digital format. So I've gotten fairly good at it over the years. And so I like to include environmental stuff like this in my book illustrations when I'm making role-playing game books. I like to include these anytime I can because it's a lot of surface area covered with pixels, and compared to like drawing like armor with filigree or like a battle scene or something, environments like this are really easy and fast to produce. And there's generally not enough terrain or environment pictures in role-playing games, mostly because most designers have the opposite problem that I have, in that they can't produce art, so they have to find art. And if they're going to use one piece of stock art over another, usually like terrain or environment isn't their highest priority. They'd rather generally want to focus on something that's a little bit more punchy. But since I create all my own art for my own books, I can custom design every page to work with itself. So I actively look for opportunities to create environmental illustrations because it's uncommon. There's not a lot of good stock art out there for environments. Since I can produce them, it's an advantage that I have in the market to have another set of like just a unique signature or identity to the books that I produce. And I got into digital Bob Ross because I was developing my skills as an artist, as a freelancer, and environments was my weakest. At the time, environments was my weakest element to my work. So like, how can I get myself so I have really good environments without murdering myself? I'm like, I used to watch a lot of Bob Ross as a kid. Maybe I can figure out how to make Bob Ross techniques work in the Photoshop space, and that's what got me into working on these things. And since I don't see color, I needed to work inside of digital tools, so I could use the RGB slider up in the right hand corner there to make sure that I'm using the right colors in my piece, so that when I get, at the time I was getting hired, to paint book covers and stuff like that for small like indie publishers and stuff. And so I needed to make sure that I was doing it correctly, and that led to these different techniques that I am now sharing with you right now. And so I streamed the creation of the books, like the ideation factor, like the design phase of it. Like we'll be doing character options for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I'll be doing a stream later on today, walking through like converting the monk into a color mana character for use with Magic the Gathering. And we've been playtesting that system. I'm refining it right now. We've made a number of alterations due to the playtesting that we've done on my Discord server. I run playtesting every Saturday morning on my Discord. And so different people that have come along from the stream here that kind of picked up, that's generally where my roster of playtesters come from. People that are interested in the ideas that I come up with for how to run and play Dungeons and Dragons, specifically 5th edition right now. And they like the cut of my jibs, so they show up to the stream. They show up to the Discord and they hang out and contribute ideas. And then we fire up a game to test the ideas and run a campaign. And as a result of what we discover during the game, we alter the document and update it so that it works better. And once we're done play testing, it's generally like this is pretty good stuff. And then we'll write it up officially, hire an editor for us to clean up the formatting, and then I'll come back in and I'll do the page layouts. And then again, once the page layouts are done, that shows us where the gaps in the book are that need illustrations, and then we fill them. Like there's enough gap down here that I could potentially have another illustration down here, but it's a small corner piece in a not so consequential, in a not very consequential chunk. So I'm going to finish all the significant illustrations, and then we're going to figure out the page filigree. We have some preliminary filigree for the page here that frames, that frames the page, and so, but this is just a placeholder right now. We're going to, after we finish all the significant illustrations here, we're going to fix the page filigree, and then once that's done, we'll be able to look like this. Like with this frame in place, this space isn't so big anymore, is it? Well, depending on how we make this frame, we might have some sort of natural texture or patterning that comes out of this frame that we can then extend into this space. Because right now it's just dead space, but we can make something with it by utilizing the frame that we have to just sort of like bleed into the page where there's gaps open to bleed. So we have actual illustrations, and then we have spots, like little vignettes that just are like little hanging pieces, and then we have texture. Those are the 3 different types of illustrations. And then, of course, there's tokens, like monster and NPC tokens that we drop in as illustrations, and then pieces of map for where the characters are adventuring. Those are the other type of illustration. So you have like actual illustrations, you have little vignettes, you have texture bleeds, and then we have cartography. Those are the 4 types of illustration that we build to fill into the adventure piece to make a holistic document that's like, this is a book. Did that answer your question? It was kind of a journey there for you, but that's the full thought process that we've been going through. And we're on episode 494 right now. That's for this adventure. Prior to working on this adventure last year, we were working on the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that I created for 5th edition, and we spent maybe like 170 episodes making the artwork for that book, all the maps and blah 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 for that. But it wasn't as big of a project as this is. This is about twice that size and has a lot more maps that needed to get built. So this is a larger project in general. And that feels, see how that just kind of bleeds into it as like its own little island, its own little shrubbery island. So that's how we want to do these things. And we have this one back here. We also need to put some ground scrub in as well. So you can make the downside like a lake. I don't. The karrnwood doesn't have any lakes in this area. I could have like little rivulets. This is off a specific portion of a world map, in the world of Eberron where the adventure is taking place. So I have to pay per, like for example, here I'll show you. Let's go to it real quick. Let's go to Corvair map. Corvair is the continent. Here, let's click on this. Open image in a new window. Fucking Reddit. Reddit just hates on illustrations. Here, let's try this. Fucking Reddit. Just give me a goddamn thing. Oh, that's why, because I'm not on images. I need to actually be on images. This one should be good. Nope, that's Reddit. How about this? Okay. Okay, maybe. Fuck, can we please get away from Reddit? Jesus. You can't zoom in on anything on Reddit, like, at all. See, it zooms the frame, not the image. And I can't separate the image from the Reddit. It just keeps picking up Reddit as the image. Hold on. This is frustrating. Now I'm a man on a mission. Etsy, this won't shit on us. Thank you. Okay, well, this is hexed. Oh god, that resolution is horrible. This may or may not work. Hold on, let's see if I can scroll over. This isn't supposed to be a big thing. Okay, this is where the adventure is taking place at. This is the northern edge. This is the Arctic Circle that we're leading up to. Here is a mountain range here, and so the adventure is taking place here. The mountain range is here, so the mountain range is north. So in an illustration, we have that mountain range back here tucked behind the forest. And in this particular stretch of Karrnaf, this is a pinewood forest. So at the more southern edges of it, we have more deciduous trees like ash and stuff like that. And then as we move further north, it becomes more and more evergreen, more pine. So the maps that we have towards the village that's located down here is mostly deciduous trees. But then we're doing like 4 different forest terrain maps. So we're adding in, some of the maps are just pine as you move further north. And between the village, which is deciduous, and deep into the woods, which is pine, there's a mix of deciduous and pine. So the maps that we're making has a mix of both of those, but this particular illustration is at the end of the section talking about traveling through the karrnwood, and your goal is to travel from the southern village to the adventure, to the site of the adventure, which is further north. So as we're moving through the pages of the adventure, we're moving deeper into the karrnwood, so there's more and more pine trees until we get to the last page of that section, and it's just a pine forest with the mountains looming in the background. So we can actually design the illustrations and the maps and stuff in the book to reflect the journey that the characters are taking through the adventure, and environment is a really good way to help reflect that. So there you go. That's the journey. But yeah, you're right. We could absolutely, if I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted with this piece, if I didn't have like these directions, that like these restraints, these design restraints of like using an actual established location with actual established landmarks in it, yeah, I would absolutely, that'd be a very Bob Ross thing to do. You're like 100% on point there, my guy. 100% on point. But that's one of the fun challenges of illustration is, like, you could do anything, but we need these specific things inside of whatever it is that you decide to do. So keeping your design constraints in mind, you then have an established space for you to make up details as you go. So we can now come in here and build out these this forest terrain piece without having to worry about, because we already established like the mountains to the north, mostly pine. From there, do whatever the fuck you want. So we grabbed some reference images over here of different pine forests, of different angles for us to be able to because I don't see color, I can use these these photos to sample the color. And then once I know that the colors that we're using are good because I'm pulling them from actual photos, I can use, since I don't see any color, I'm only operating inside grayscale. So my awareness of contrast is all I have for, distinguishing one object from another when I'm looking at it. So I have a really heightened sense of contrast. So once the colors I'm using I know are good, I can use my own natural skills to create these different layers, because in illustrations, contrast is what draws your eye. So I'm really good at controlling your eye's movement through the different contrasts and layering of lights and darks that I use. So you can see here we have like dark, light. Yeah, this is a good spot. Dark, light, 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 dark, light. As we continue moving down the page, you're transitioning from dark to light, dark to light, dark to light, and that contrast is attractive to the eye. You're pulled to the contrast. So once the colors make sense from the machine, I can just use my developed sense of art, as an illustrator, to build the composition to just be interesting and fun. Anyway, hopefully that makes some sense, right? And it takes a while to do it, but like Bob will finish a piece in a half hour, but he did it 3 times already before he gets on screen and does it quickly. This is the only time I'm making this illustration, so this is the same design, composition design work that Bob would do, except that he does it all off screen. You don't watch it happening. I'm showing you all the steps, like all the steps of everything that I do to make role-playing games. And to build them into books and to publish them, like the layouts. I don't do a lot of layout on camera because it's boring as fuck. Listening to me pushing text around, like I need to, like this line has 3 letters more text than I need. How am I going to reconfigure this text so that it'll sit on the page and still mean the same thing? Like most people don't want to watch me argue with that. But illustration's fun because I've gotten to a point where I don't actually generally have to think while I'm painting. I can just do the thing. I can just let the pixels push wherever they want to push to, and the less I think about it, the better it ends up. I can turn off my brain and let the pixels flow on their own, because I've put in like 16,000 hours of illustration over the past 25 years. So I can trust my eye-hand coordination to do what I want it to do, to produce the effects that I want. And that leaves my mind open to have conversations and ramble about shit with you guys. And since I'm such a D&D enthusiast and I design games for role-playing, I design books for role-playing games, I tend to talk about role-playing stuff. So I don't do a lot of pre-built videos that I upload when they're done, like with a lot of editing. It's like, I could go on like a 45-minute tear about like what's it like to run a 20th level campaign, or like what's it like to run a campaign for 5 years, or like what's my hex crawl procedures that I go through, stuff like that. I have the freedom to talk about whatever comes to mind. And when I'm illustrating role-playing games, I tend to talk about whatever the content on the page is. Just kind of makes sense. So, okay, great. That feels really good. That's a good ridgeline. I like that. We're also very close to being out of time at 7:45. So I'm going to grab this shadow here, and we're going to go back to our round brush. And this is... Jesus, it's Friday already. Holy shit. All right, so let's go back to our composition and see where things are sitting. So I'm going to just drop another tree in here like that. That's a little bit too thick. I'm going to thin it down a little bit. But yeah, we're going to drop... See, the tree just drops in behind the foliage. That's established. That's established. We have our, this layer here is this background grit. So I'm going to put the trees, the new tree line in like this. Maybe not there specifically. Maybe more like that. I'm going to drop down the size of that and maybe put a tree maybe like that. Another tree like that. Like that. Maybe this is going to be a big fat tree we know is going to sit here. So framing other trees around it is a little bit tricky. It's a compositional, it's a composition quandary. So I'm going to actually push this over here. And I'm going to push this over here. Yeah, that feels pretty good. So once we have these trees fed in, it's just going to add to the overall mass. And then we'll have eventually only a little bit of these mountains are going to be poking through in the end. And we're going to have like, you know, canopy here blocking off the top of this. So a lot of the sky is going to end up getting blocked off. So I wanted to have like this keyhole here, even though we're going to have this big tree sitting there, we have this little keyhole effect that we can see through the terrain to see the distance. So it's a tricky composition. It's a really challenging piece to have things stacked up like this, but we're making good progress. So I expect this to be done next week. I only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to show you guys what I've been working on the side. Because I only stream artwork in the morning, but I work on this thing in the evening as well, every day off screen. So let me show you two different things. Here's one of the forest maps that we have that are going into the adventure. And you can see these are deciduous trees, and you can lift the top off of each of these to reveal the skeleton of, or the skeletal structure, the root system, and in this instance, the branches that hold the canopy up. So we have the 5-foot squares here, and we have the forest floor, and then each of these trees has a canvas that you can lift, canopy that you can lift off. These are deciduous trees that we've already created, right? It's like a cloud. It's like a cotton ball made of leaves. So this is what it looks like. This is probably the comfortable level, like to have a 5-foot, each 5-foot square character occupies that space. This is probably as zoomed in as you need. Like this is like different type of flora on the forest floor. We have some rocks over here that creates difficult terrain. It's just it's a battle map because there's an encounter that takes place over here. And that's right, this is hedge. So these hedges, you can't cross through them. They create an obstacle. So we have these, it's like if I lift the canopy off of here, you can see that the hedges don't really extend underneath the canopy, and they wouldn't because the hedges, the plant hedges wouldn't get any light underneath the canopy. So it drops back to normal ground. But this creates an obstacle, that obscures like weapon fire, for example. You can't do ranged fire through these squares, but you have these rocks here. This blocks movement and a line of sight, while these rocks just create difficult terrain for your characters to move through. So we have different topography that builds into the map. So this is the deciduous forest, and this is close. This is closest to the village. So I'm going to probably swap out a couple of these trees with some pine just for variety, but it's largely a deciduous portion of the forest. And now, because I'm an idiot, I never actually made pine tree tokens for the maps. So off screen right now, I'm focusing largely on creating those pine tree tokens. So this is where we're at so far. This is a pine tree. Pine trees have these tufts to them. So this is the design that we've come up with so far. And I'm going to I'll get rid of the grid so you can just see it. And then if we lift the canopy off of this, hold on. that's the skeleton or the branches for the. Here we go, down here. Thank you. Whoop. That's how pine trees develop. So you have major branches that fractal off at roughly rightish angles. So all the top, we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 major points here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 major points here. So all the tufts that we're building on top of the branches are reflecting the architecture of the branches. With deciduous trees, you don't have to worry about that architecture so much. It just basically turns into a cotton swab. But with pine trees, like with conifers, it's actually important because we have to actually, because it actually emits, like it radiates from those branches more precisely in these little needle tips that form these little communities of needles at different angles. So the type of language that we're using is different, but it's the same brush that we use to make this brush stroke here that we're using to create this overhead view is the, no, I don't want to save that file. Go back to the illustration that we were just painting. We go back into it and we have these conifer trees that have these tufts that work in these radial layers. Overhead, it would have that same sort of tufting pattern. So as we move into these other pieces and we develop branches for this, we'll have a side angle of the same top angled plants, bushes that we're making map tokens for. So it all ties together. Never played role-playing games, but I'm into art, especially nature and epic panoramas. Oh, cool. So yeah, I occasionally do this, and this is the island that is in the middle. Yeah, so most of this is like creature art, character art, item art, buildings, vehicles, tokens for like gameplay. So there's a large mix of different type of illustrations that I do. It just depends on what is being discussed on the page and what's going to fill that page. So some of this stuff is going to be interesting to you, some of it maybe not. But it's all of it goes into what it takes to like build role-playing games. So I go through all the production of, from ideation to publication, all of the art, all the writing, all the layouts, all the design work that goes into it. And when it publishes, I've got a bunch of books that are linked down below that you can see the end result of different types of stuff that I build. So like the last book that we made was Spelljammer. Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, and you can click on the full preview and it'll pull open like this is the book cover that we made of these two spaceships that are engaged in combat with each other. And like here's a bunch of different tokens and maps and stuff that we built as part of the introduction. Here's some stuff that you get. Here's all the different things. So we can click down here to the adventure at the back of so the front end of the book is explaining how to have nautical themed campaigns in a space-like setting. And then we have an adventure at the back end of it that explains how to utilize those tools together. Like we have a random system generator. Like if you're going to have like different worlds that your characters can visit on their space galleons, like here's a lava planet. So we have like this lake of like glowing lava coming out of these volcanoes here. That was a fun illustration. Like these scattered asteroids orbiting around this planet and moon. Different types of elemental moons, like air world, fire world, water worlds, different types of terrain. And you can see like all these different tokens that we made of different characters and stuff that appear in the adventure. And here's an example of that texture that I'm talking about. Like this was too small of a space to warrant its own illustration, but this frame that I have for the book, this like skyscape frame that we have, can bleed into and like quote unquote behind the text to create these interesting different points of texture. Like here's a map that we made for characters to fly their ships through and engage in combat. So we spent probably like 40 hours painting different asteroids. So, and you know, I talk about asteroid combat. Like here's one of the ships. It's shaped like a spider. These little spiderling fighter craft, and these are like harpoon shooters, and that's a ballista. So yeah, different characters and stuff. This is the type of stuff that we like. Here's another, like, I have a lot of topographies, like texture stuff, like all these little rogue little spots that are empty on the page. I can just fill with this interesting information inside here, just image, just like little visual stuff. Where's another example of it bleeding into a page in an odd direction? Not a lot down here, but up in the in the spellcasting section, like you have like these little bleeds into the page all over the place that uses the frame to show that like the text is sitting on top of this backdrop. So it's really fun. It's a way to cheat like that. Here's that little corner that we were talking about, right? We have like this little, here, remove this. Like we have this little corner piece here. It's like, what are we supposed to do with that little gappy piece? We'll end up doing something like this just to occupy the space. And like the gray boxes that we're using here at some point, like is aligned with the gray level along the page here. Like here's an illustration that just bleeds in. So we have a lot of different ways that we can manipulate illustrations on the page. It's fun. It's just fun building these books and like creating solutions. Like here we're like really bleeding into the environment with this space galleon and its fleet of little fighter craft running alongside of it. So it's fun. It's just fun little, and like it explains like mechanics of like how to have fleet battles and stuff like that in space. And but there's all these little pinches of like empty space that would feel like, it would feel like your eye would stare at it for a second. It's like, why is there all this empty black space like this? Because this map portion here, like this is a squadron of arrow ships that are in formation with each other inside of this block of space, and it doesn't require the width of this column to express that illustration. So instead of making it taller and making it difficult to fit all the information that I need with text on the page, I made it smaller here, and I just like here you can see like how that white space is opened up, and that would feel a little empty if I had that twice in a row here. But here I'm just eating into the page just to create a break in, just a break in perspective of like what. And like here we can do it again, and like this text box is sitting on top of it. So it's just a really fun way to manipulate and blend things into the page. So some of this stuff will be relevant. That's what's difficult about this channel. We do so much different stuff. It's not focused like, all I'm ever going to do on this page is environment illustration. Here's that spiraling fighter craft again as a three-dimensional object that's skulking along these asteroids, hunting this space galleon. So like this was a fun thing to illustrate. Yeah, different stuff. Anyway, there you go. So that's it for today. I got to kick out of here. I'm going to be back. I'm going to be doing game design for the role-playing game. I'll be back doing game design at 2:30 in Seattle, and it's just about 8 o'clock now. So in 6.5 hours, we'll be back for about an hour or so doing new game content, new rules, stuff that we've been actively playtesting that needs to be updated because we've been playtesting it. We have updates to the system, and I need to go through the document to make sure that everything that's in the current rule set is compliant with the changes that we've made to the game because of the playtesting that we've done. So I'll be doing that in 6.5 hours here again on stream. No artwork. It's just going to be game design and like RPG concepts, and that creates its own conversation points. So that's it for now, guys. Tree line is there. Hold on. Run that off the side of the page. There we go. Yep, more trees, and then the next layer will have more trees, and then more trees. It'll start being more and more of a forest, and we'll have like this thin band of where we can actually see like skyline and trees, like the mountains and the sky and stuff through like along this bandwidth here. But we're gonna have more and more trees filling in the foreground here eating up that space, and it's just going to end up being a canopy up here. This is going to fill in with foliage in different layers. So anyway, that's what we're doing. That's where we're at. That's where we're going to be on Monday when we come back Monday morning to continue working on this piece. I'm going to keep working on those pine tree map tokens over the weekend. Obviously, I'm not here on Saturday and Sunday, so I'll be back at 2:30 to do game design, and then I'll be back doing artwork Monday morning. So anyone that thinks this stuff is cool and wants to check out the ride, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications when we're live in the future. Thanks a lot to the new subscribers that we had since yesterday. Really appreciate you guys taking an interest in this stuff. And I'll see y'all in the future. Thanks a lot. Cheers.